Well, good afternoon. Thanks for being here with us today. I'm Stacy Barca. I'm the Assistant Director of Research Administration. I oversee the 4 School of Medicine teams in the Office of Sponsored Programs. I've been with UNC for about 19 years. I spent 7 of those years in departments, and then the last 12 years in the Office of Sponsored Programs.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lance Underwood. I'm the other Assistant Director of Research Administration and OSP. I work alongside with Stacy. I've been with UNC as an employee for 22 years, but before that I was an undergrad. And I've been with OSP for about 15 years now. It's kind of crazy how time flies. I manage 4 teams that are responsible for the same duties as Stacy's school of medicine teams, but which is a proposal review and submission, award setup, award negotiation, contracting, federal contracting, that is. And those 4 teams are responsible for just main campus, basically. So the centers, institutes that report to the Vice Chancellor for Research, the School of Public Health, the College of Art and Sciences, and I like to say all the independent schools. So School of Nursing, School of Law, School of Government, School of Pharmacy, kind of get the picture.
I only have one school. Thank you. That's the #1 school. So Lance and I are team-oriented. So while we're in this room, we're going to need your participation. We don't only need it, we want your participation. This is an interaction session. It is anonymous, maybe. It really is anonymous. And we have a motto. This is my motto: teamwork makes the dream work. During the session, we'll be doing a quick get to know you survey. We'll discuss and define transactional leadership versus transformational leadership. And we'll share some experiences that we've had in a transactional leadership environment, which has led to us changing our leadership styles. I'm gonna let Lance talk now because I really like to talk.
And I'm always the quiet one. So we'll pivot our discussion more into what we think it means to have a transformational leadership style. We'll also discuss the challenges of the pandemic and the impact that it had on our office. And just we want to share our own experiences about what we went through and how we made that transition through the pandemic. So with that said, we'd like to get to know all of you a little bit better. We're going to move on to our first polling question. I know that Stacey and I told you a little bit about ourselves. So I'd like to know, how many years have you been in research administration or worked in research administration?
Not much better.
Oh, 8.5.
That's an exam.
23. Six. So we have some relatively new experience and some experienced individuals.
Well, in the spirit of being anonymous, does anybody want to share who the longevity is here in this room? Okay, you don't have to.
Right here in the front row. Oh, less than 2 years.
So also, how many years have you worked here at UNC? That doesn't mean you've had to be in research administration. It's just how many years you worked here.
23 again.
Oh, that's 2 prizes, Rhonda.
That's not me.
No.
I don't come up and just a minute.
Oh, that's right. I don't know how long you've been here.
Yeah.
Yeah, hers is even longer.
Oh, 1. Nice.
So there's a lot of you here who did not experience our transformation after Connect Carolina came in. So.
All right, we're going to move on to the next question. So we'd like to know, have you previously worked for another organization outside of UNC? I've basically spent my entire career here, so.
In research administration or in general?
Just in general.
Whatever you want to, right?
Yeah.
Make it yours. Yeah.
We have a lot of other. Anyone want to volunteer what the other might mean to you?
Nice.
Nice.
Okay.
What if you get more than one?
It only registers 1.
That's okay. 1 choice is good.
One choice is good here. Good. Anybody want to own the international entity? And do you want to share where that was?
The State Rail Authority of New South Wales.
Oh, nice.
I move on to what best describes your overall work experience in research administration as a research administrator.
And you can answer more than one here. I mean, for me, it's mainly central office, but also for me, it's more post award than anything else.
I've had a little bit of everything. More from a department standpoint.
So we're pretty even on the pre-award, post-award, some financial management, a little bit of contracting.
All right. So we
Good
got to
representation. All
So,
right.
well, we're heading into the fall. It's football season here in Chapel Hill. We'd like to hear a little bit about your summer though. So, got a question about, a little fun question. What's your favorite summertime activity? Is it toes in the sand, the mountains? Are you an international traveler? Are you an amusement park junkie? Shop till you drop? That would be me.
I think it was just too hot to do anything this past summer, so.
Camping and glamping.
Too hot to do anything unless I'm at.
We have a lot of beach people in
Yep.
here. We have some international travelers.
Oh, nice.
Those of you who are junkies, more power to you.
All right, well, thank you for answering those questions and participating. We'll move on to the next slide. So this bar graph represents the amount of growth that UNC has experienced since fiscal year 2006 through fiscal year 2022. And you'll see we hovered around 600 million back then, and now, kind of doubled that, 1.2 billion. That's a lot of growth. And that's also a lot of growing pains to have to go through. So because of my longevity here in OSP, I firsthand have seen this growth since 2008. And I've seen the impacts it's had on university infrastructure. So we had a reorganization in OSP, back then OSR, in 2015-16, which was basically done to help support the infrastructure and help provide the services that campus needed for a research administration perspective. Even though we've surpassed the 1 billion mark the past couple of years, I hear there's a rumor that the goal is to get to 2 billion at some point. So we need to be prepared for it. This growth has forced us to think a little bit more about our leadership styles and to evaluate what it means to have a transactional leadership style versus a transformational leadership style. Before we share our definition of what each one means, we'd like to poll everyone here to see what you think your current organization has in terms of their leadership style. There we go.
So it could be transactional, it could be transformational. You just may not know, but maybe by the end of this session, you will know.
A lot of I don't knows. It's not surprising.
Right. So as I shared earlier, UNC had a significant increase in volume and experienced challenges from 2014 forward. These challenges have really led us to evaluate our leadership style. And we started climbing this slippery slope to transformational leadership. And by that, I mean, it's always like 4 steps forward, 5 steps back, 3 steps forward, 4 steps back. You're not gonna dance for me?
Yeah.
Let's get it.
Forward, backwards.
Now you've embarrassed.
That's my So what is transactional leadership? It's exactly what it sounds like. It's all about the transaction. You may be rewarded for meeting goals. You may be punished for not meeting goals. You may take your team and micromanage them to meet their goals. You're more concerned with processes than ideas. And really, ideas are important, right? Ideas, you generate ideas, you make mistakes, you learn from mistakes, you get more ideas. You also silo your teams at times, and that means you don't allow your teams to go outside their own team and collaborate. And that's just not a healthy environment. That we can't be successful in that environment. And they have a fear of change. Change is bad, change is scary. Transactional leaders are change averse. They want everything and everyone to stay the same.
Same thing, everything, same old. So what is transformational leadership? To me, it's driving on the road of endless possibilities, as we see here on this slide. It's being open-minded, open to new ideas, building a positive culture, and embracing change in order to encourage creativity, autonomy, and more effective communication. And more importantly, more trust. It's not being afraid to take chances by seeking the wisdom and tapping into the experiences of all team members within the organization.
So Lance and I have worked together for the past 12 years, and we played several different roles in OSP. We worked together as SPSs, Sponsored Project Specialists. And during that, at one point, Lance was my manager. And during that time, we really went through a lot of change. That was around 2014, 2015, system changes, office transformations. And then we were managers together. And that's when we really started realizing we needed to pivot our leadership style. And now we lead our teams together. And I think that's a great thing. Because we have grown together over the years, we'd like to share some experiences which have led us to change our leadership styles. So first, let's talk about the financial system. In 2015, if you remember, Connect Carolina came in and turned everybody's life upside down. And that was not fun. So fun fact, UNC is the first public institution of higher education in the United States. And I believe the system was probably that old.
FRS, anyone remember?
Screens and all. So then we had top leadership changes. And some of those leadership changes were where our associate vice chancellor took another position on campus. A new vice chancellor of research was appointed. And we also brought Huron in to streamline our billing modules. And also to assist in implementing best practices throughout the office. And to top it off, we experienced increased volume, complexity, and also compliance. If you think about it, that's when conflict of interest came in. We had data security, more strict requirements, and the black hole, of course, of expert control, black hole, visual compliance, and subrecipient monitoring. And while subrecipient monitoring does affect the PI, it also affects the subaward team. And how they draft their subawards is based on subrecipient monitoring, and there's a lot of tedious work in that. So all this change led to a 75% decrease in office staff across OSP. Some people left because they didn't like the new leadership. Some people didn't want to work in a new system, and that always roots out people when you implement a new system. It's new, they retire, they move on. Some people left UNC, some people went to departments.
I think we had bagels like every Friday for 3 months, and that was because people were leaving, not because we were celebrating something. So every Friday.
I thought about that. Lance reminded me. So we really had to move quickly. So Huron was already in the office, so we started plugging holes with Huron. We had Huron consultants sitting in manager positions, SPS positions, directors positions. It was an interesting time. And actually, if you've ever been to the old AOB conference room, kind of about this side, we had tables lined up and chairs with Huron consultants all the way down. They had their own Keurig coffee pot, and we were allowed to use it. They were allowed to use ours. So we knew that Huron, they couldn't stay forever, right? They cost a lot of money. We couldn't have them forever. So we reached out and we got a recruitment agency, and we did, and Brian can speak to this, we did 15 to 20 speed round interviews for about 30 minutes each. And we brought
Speed dating.
Yeah, it was like speed dating for consultants, right? We brought in 10 to 12 contractors And there are some of these contractors in this room. Right? Would you like to stand up? I'm just. So, we gave him training for about a week and we set him loose on the floor. I think Lance and I for 6 months had people lined up outside the door for 6 months,
Yeah.
asking question after question. But I think that's when we learned the most about ourselves and really where we wanted to go as leaders. I'm not saying that was a perfect time for us. We didn't know exactly what we wanted to do. We knew what we didn't want to do though. On top of that, we participated in a large recruitment effort. So we got 13 FTEs for sponsor project specialists. I think like maybe they were a mixture of new and also existing. We had 5 research administration managers. I believe only one of those positions was existing and we hired 4 additional. Lance and I sat down, tried to figure out how many interviews we did, and we came up with around maybe 368 interviews in a 4-month period. Out of the 10 to 12 contractors we brought on, we ended up hiring around 6 of those contractors. And I believe 3 or 4 are still with us, and 2 have actually stepped into research administration manager positions. And one of those people is here in this room. I will say that year was really, really crazy for us.
Was
I think
crazy.
we learned a lot.
Yeah. So to continue with our experiences, all this kind of led to these initiatives, one of which was a development of new SOPs and improved SOPs. And I was luckily reassigned to a different role to help with that project with the assistance of Huron. We began looking at our organizational structure. We wanted to reorganize it. And so we actually decided that we were going to create teams that were, one term is cradle to grave, but then we have an SBS that loves to say cradle to nursing home. So we actually went from 1 pre-award team and 3 award management teams to 7 cradle to nursing home teams and 1 outgoing subaward team. And actually now today we have 8 cradle to nursing home teams, and the outgoing subaward team shifted to our contracting teams. And we built another non-federal contracting team on top of that. We began looking at system processes, more specifically Ramsey's, and since it's a homegrown system, we were able to, with the help of Brian Collier, able to help develop Ram Tracker, and which is a system that we use to track our award management transactions. It was used to help us figure out workload and volume and metrics, and also transparency to campus. Because we had so many new hires, I started to do huddle groups. So like office hours in my office. So I bring in 6 people for an hour a day or something, and they would all ask me their questions, and then they would all hear my response, which would give them more consistent action on how to move forward on those transactions and situations. More recently, actually, sorry about then, we actually took a look at our pre-audit dollar thresholds. So we were actually, our office was reviewing every single financial transaction that was charged to our sponsor project. And so those thresholds were raised for most vouchers to around $5,000. And so more recently, we've had new committees that were created throughout our office. One was just kind of a continuation of a social committee. We had a new employee retention committee that was created. We started a new research administration mentoring program. And actually more recently, we have a new research administration staff working group. I'd like to kind of give a big thank you to that working group. They've done a great job in cataloging our process documents and taking a look and seeing what training needs we might have that we need throughout our office or within our unit. And they've also provided feedback to the leadership team, which has been really beneficial. So Stacy and I realized that the transactional style leadership is not who we really wanted to be throughout all these experiences. And so we wanted to begin to transform how we wanted to lead our teams and how we define leadership as a whole.
So can you tell us what word or words define leadership for you? There's no right or wrong answer here. Just how you feel about leadership. Inspires trust. Empathetic.
Communication is a good one.
Oh, it's-
Mentor.
Support, servant, mentoring, lifting, communication. Communication is a big one.
Light support.
JJ. Wow, they call him. I know it's supposed to be anonymous, but what is that?
Servant. I like this. These are all really good definitions. So thank you.
So Lance is going to share his leadership motto with you. It's something we both try to live by. It's not perfect. So when you hear his motto, it's not something that we can apply every day. We're not perfect people. We don't try to be perfect people, and we don't want to be perfect people, but we do want to lead appropriately.
Well, thank you. So I'm a big sports person. I love watching team sports and stuff. And so I think about, when you're motivating a team, you want to have like a motto, right? And so one motto I think of is the word team. Does everyone know what that stands for?
Together, everyone achieves more.
So with that mindset, and when I was recently promoted to assistant director, I had to think about, well, I'm going to be leading a team of managers, and what can I inspire them with so they can lead their teams below them. So I came up with the word, obviously lead, and then is my acronym, and these are the categories, I guess, as part of my motto. So listen, for me, this is personal. I was born with a hearing loss, so I feel like my entire life I've been practicing active listening with my eyes, listening with my ears, just trying to get a sense of what's going on with what the other person is telling me. But it's more about listening to understand, right? To understand the other person. You want it to not jump to a conclusion while they're speaking. And so I think it's important to kind of share that motto of listening to my team members so they can listen to their campus customers, listen to their coworkers, listen to upper leadership, even listen to a mentor if they have one. And again, avoid thinking of an immediate response. And also it's good to ask questions when you're listening, because you want to make sure you get a full understanding of what's being told to you. And overall, I think it just promotes more effective communication. I'm a firm believer in empowering my teams with the tools and resources to make them successful. I do that to the ability that I can do it within those constraints. But I feel like it's just beneficial for everybody to give them everything they need so they can be successful. And even in that sense, when they come to me with questions, I may not always know the answer, but I like to think I can guide them to that answer and help guide them to where they can find that answer so that we can both learn together. Awareness of here, just basically being aware of your surroundings, and also being aware of yourself, being aware how you treat other people or how you communicate to other people, but also being aware of like maybe having like a kinetic sense to kind of see, oh, is there a situation that may go wrong? Can I get ahead of that and have a solution for that situation, and that before it gets escalated, kind of thing. I just think it's you want to be more aware so that you can become more self-aware at the same time. And this is not only development and skills and abilities through professional and development opportunities like the Symposium, but it's more for me about developing partnerships and developing trust with your team members, with your campus coworkers, direct reports, sponsors even. And to build on that, I'm the chair of the mentoring program within our unit, and I get an opportunity to see the mentor-mentee relationships develop, and I get tickled by that a little bit to see how those relationships grow. So one of my favorite topics that my team knows I like is pivot leadership. So we're going to talk a little bit more about pivot leadership as part of a transformational leadership style. So Stacey and I talked about some of the challenges we went through that kind of pivoted our leadership style. So we'd like to hear from you. Did you have some similar experiences? And you don't have to be a manager to be a leader. Anyone can be a leader within the organization.
think that's a good point, because when you're speaking just to your coworkers, they're listening to what you're saying. And being part of a leader, you can be a leader and not be a manager. You can just lead with your words and your actions, and people will follow.
The staffing shortages and increased volume and complexity are the winners.
We are here at UNC.
That's right.
Virtual work environment. Do you think sometimes we feel the effects of that, right? We're all here today. Today feels good. We're around people now. I'm gonna go home and have to crawl in bed for like a couple of days. It feels good to be around people.
We have a little bit of an other over there. Does anybody want to share what the other means to them? It's not up here.
Other, because I think for me, becoming more self-aware and understanding the personality, like I'm an introvert, which people know me, but learning how to be more extroverted in the work environment has helped me quite a bit.
Yeah, I'm the same way.
But mine is a mixture of different things, from military to being a volunteer fireman. And then working in the COVID environment too. So it's a little bit more, it's complex, but the military is the big thing. Because you're able to see a variety of leadership.
Mhm.
I
Very
agree.
good point.
I've been in the military, so I get that. I get exactly what you're saying.
Thank you for sharing that, both of you. So because I like to pivot, and I'm a big sports person. So how many NCAA national championships has UNC won?
You could have what?
Well, thank you for asking that question. So in research administration, nothing is ever black and white in my mind. So-
On what?
So exactly, it depends. So I feel like in research administration, you're posed with a question, but you got to ask questions back, right? So what kind, what is he talking about, et cetera.
That picture is tennis.
So the answer, I guess, is all the answers are right, but I'll break it down a little bit for you. So the 6 is men's basketball championships, 21 is women's soccer, 49 are the number of individual championships, 79 I'm sorry, I had that backwards. 49 is number of team, 79 is number of individual, and then the grand total is 128. So it depends how you ask the question, right? So
It depends.
On what?
So the real answer is 6.
It depends on a lot of things, right? Maybe you gotta ask more questions, maybe you gotta do more research, maybe you gotta go talk to one of your colleagues. I don't know, it just depends. It could depend on a million different things. I could
You
give
got
you a
tennis and
million.
tennis, on what?
Right.
moving on. So Stacy and I are sharing our own experiences in our environment at OSP. And so we really try to operate as a transformational leadership team by the following ways. We like to focus on inspiring and motivating employees and motivating them towards meeting goals. We like to recognize that we have a multi-generational workforce and their needs and strengths are just as important. We try to provide the tools necessary to stimulate critical thinking because we feel like that's a huge component of our jobs is to inspire critical thinking. We're pretty vulnerable, I think. We like to, we will admit to our own mistakes, but at the same token, we like to work towards a solution from those situations and not form a roadblock. And again, we like to empower our teams to embody our office vision, which is compliant service people, which was on the slide earlier and one of the questions. And we do that by participating and by sending positive messages and being good role models for others.
And I want to follow up to Lance's word mistakes. So mistakes aren't just transactional. They can involve words, actions, body language. We're all guilty of mistakes like that at some time. And just being able to be vulnerable enough to recognize that is important in a leader. So we also believe in showing appreciation for the job that's being done. I think that's important to acknowledge the job that's being done and recognize the stress that everybody's under. We also I feel like we're flexible. I think that you have to be flexible in this environment. We practice treating each team member as an individual because they are exactly individuals. You can't treat everybody the same because people are just not the same. We try to practice an open door policy. We enjoy interacting with our team, our internal OSP partners, our external partners. We also entertain an open door campus for the most part to campus. We enjoy those collaborations. We also believe in a top-down, bottom-up environment and not just a top-down environment where everything's coming from the top down. All the rules are made at the top. So we encourage our teams to have a voice in process making and process improvement. But let me clarify, there's a difference, right? You get a voice, you get an opinion, you share your ideas with the understanding that not all ideas can be implemented. You think about the big picture and you think of what you want to do. Then you think about of how many people that's going to touch. And I will tell you, my first thing I did in OSP, this is me being vulnerable. I created one of the biggest waves I've ever seen because I didn't do it right. I didn't think it through. And I learned the hard way. That's part of growing. Also, transparency. I think transparency is important. I think sharing the knowledge that you have that you can share. Sometimes you can't share it. You just can't. But for the most part, we do try to share about upcoming initiatives, processes, and sometimes things get ahead of us, right? We can't catch it. It just goes. It's too fast. Those are hard because it feels like we're not transparent. But the intent for leadership is to be transparent, is you can be. I think it's you.
Oh. So we're going to talk a little bit about transitioning, I guess, from the pivot leadership when the pandemic started in March 2020.
So how did everybody's exit go when you left the university to go to a virtual environment in March of 2020? Was it bumpy? Was it smooth? Did you hit potholes?
Ah, that's encouraging. A lot of smooth.
For those of us hired after March 2020, can we say that it wasn't the sign in remotely or start work remotely?
Sure.
Yeah. And that's actually a very good point that you bring up because, you know, making that transition for us into a remote environment and having to start hiring in that environment was definitely a new challenge for us and really had to be creative in how we made that happen.
And I still think we struggle. I think that's like a constant struggle. How do you bring people in and make them, you know, when you were in an office environment, even in the departments, you had a culture, right? When you walk through the door, you hope you feel that culture. How do you have your new employees feel that culture?
So what accommodations did your unit previously implement enabling success during that transition into the pandemic? Did your unit already have a work from home policy? Did you already have laptops? Did you have a paperless process already?
We did that day.
We have looks like maybe one other. Wonder what anyone want to volunteer what accommodation was?
All of the above.
All the above. Nice. So laptops is the highest one there.
I could see that because I think everybody had laptops before our office.
Yeah. All right. Thank you for responding.
So, as you know, we had short notice before we walked out the door. Going into that temporary remote situation, I'm not sure what we see. It was a fairly smooth experience for most people, but I'm sure our experiences aren't unique to us, but we do want to share a couple of the wins we had versus the challenges we had. So let's talk about that paper-based process. Well, we love some paper, hundreds of pages
Hundreds
a
and
day
hundreds.
in our office.
The file room was overflowing into the hallways.
We shifted every from a paper-based process for award setup to an electronic process. Thank you to Jen to share it over here. Yay, and we've never gone back. I'm so excited about that. Well, you know, the best thing that ever came from this exit, really the quick exit, was the demise of the paper-based process. We already had laptops in place. A couple years ago, we approached our operations team, especially because we were going out to campus. And when you go out and have a meeting on campus and you don't have a laptop, it's really hard. So we were prepared for that. Also, Lance talked earlier about the retention committee. So that really helped us with our smooth exit. They had, we had implemented a 1 day a week work at home program. So most of our staff have workstations set up at home. And the retention committee actually did a survey. And with the recommendations from that survey, that's how we implemented that 1 day a week work at home program. So when we walked out the door, we were kind of like, take your chairs, take whatever you need to make you comfortable, because you're going to be at home. You need to be in your work environment at home to be comfortable. Well, we had successes. We also had challenges, especially challenges that would affect morale. Because of COVID, everybody wanted COVID fix, right? So we got funding after funding after funding, which is a great thing, but it was a lot of volume. With that type of funding, there came a different type of complexity, more terms and conditions, more restrictions, a lot of contract negotiation. It was just a very, very different time in our office. And then we got FTEs, and then we advertised as FTEs, and we couldn't hire because we weren't competitive enough. We had a salary freeze, so we couldn't increase our team's salaries, so we can advertise higher, and it was a problem for us, so we weren't hiring well. Right before we went out, leadership developed a career ladder that would have rewarded for, you know, you get to certain levels in your career ladder based on experience. So right when we were walking out, we were going to fund that career ladder, and we walked out the door and the salary freeze came. And it took 2 years to lift that took 2 years to lift that restriction. But even when that restriction was lifted, it took us almost 9 months, I think, to fund that career ladder by the time it went through HR. And, you know, so we couldn't really be competitive. And now we're a little bit more competitive. And that's really helped a lot.
So now, even though we're 3.5 years after March 2020, we're still navigating how to operate in a remote environment while maintaining employee satisfaction. So I will say that I feel like we're 100% remote because we were able to prove that we could be productive and provide customer service to campus. And so senior leadership felt like that was successful enough for us to be rewarded with the privilege of working from home 100% of the time. During the pandemic, I think we all had to deal with the Great Resignation. You know, people were making personal decisions about where they were working and where they wanted to work, and so that changed our hiring practices. We had to rewrite job descriptions, change job classifications of our current team members, but also to attract more recruits. You know, one way of doing that was to allow us to hire someone that did not have a business degree. And we were so limited in that one area with a degree that there were plenty of applicants that had other types of degrees that I think to this day are more successful in many ways. We began listening more to, I have exercise sports science degree. So I think as we were becoming more aware of shifts of workflow and mainly due to the complexity and volume that Stacy talked about. And also as a leadership team, we were focusing more about communication in a remote environment, trying to figure out how do we communicate better? How do we reach out to people more frequently and make sure that they're in a good headspace, a good well-being, and making sure that they're having a good work-life balance? Because I'm a firm believer in work-life balance. I think a lot of people know that, and I don't want people on at 9 o'clock at night, checking email, because it's not necessary. And then with all that, just being more empathetic towards people and just understanding that everyone is going through something that in their own personal lives. And when we made that transition to working from home in March 2020, a lot of parents had to homeschool their kids, while working from home. And you just have to think about those things, just really be empathetic towards that.
And that's where flexible comes in. So transformational leadership styles are always evolving when faced with certain challenges. What are the current challenges you may be facing? Is it hiring and turnover, maybe pay, being competitive, workload volume, work-life balance, and ability to work remote or hybrid? Being able to engage with your employees.
Not surprising about workload volume.
I think that B and C don't surprise me.
Right.
And I agree with the virtual onboarding and training.
Mhm. Oop.
So we want to open the rest of the session for questions, if anybody has any questions. And I hope this maybe, if you want to be a leader just at a certain level or actually move into a management position, I hope it maybe helps you determine how you want to lead. So, well, if anybody ever wants to talk to us or continue this conversation, here's our contact information. You can reach out. I won't hunt you down. But thank you for coming today.
Yeah, thank you.